So, welcome to another show. Today we've got Chris Donaldson on, who is an author. The book actually is called Going the Wrong Way. It's about a great story that he goes traveling, but we'll come to that. So, welcome to today's show, Chris.
Glad to be here.
So, why did you go traveling? Why the book? What's the story?
Well, it starts in the 70s, I guess. I grew up in Belfast, and the 70s, 60s and 70s were a great time to be in Belfast, really. My school was in the centre of town. You could see bombs going off through the front windows. Um, so by the time you get to teenager the situation I got, you just wanted to get out of town. I got a notion in my head I wanted to go to Australia. Um, I was always into motorbikes. I just thought it'd be a good way to see the world at the same time. But I think sort of getting out of Belfast is probably my main motivation to go east. I knew people in Australia, family in Australia, so I thought I could maybe get a job there. But I didn't get very far. I got to London. I was in the autumn '79, and the Ayatollah Khomeini decided to take over the American embassy in Tehran just after I left. So what could have been a 3 month journey to Australia was up in the air. So I ended up going to South Africa, drove it through the Middle East, through Egypt, over the desert, went down to Cape Town, the middle of apartheid, sailed back up in a yacht race, back to Europe, got the bike shipped to the States, and I drove from Canada down to through Central America and down to South America, ended up in Argentina. Hence the name of the book called Going the Wrong Way. I sort of left to go to Australia and ended up on the other side of the world.
That's crazy if you think about it. That's a long way to travel by aeroplane, by car, but by on a bike. Oh, you must have had a really sore ass to be fair. But I think the important part of that for me, that's that initial part of the story is so there's two ways that people can make change in their life. One is they move forward towards something they want. So, you might want to start a business because you want to make money to get a nice, lovely girlfriend. Or you want to start a business because you don't want to be poor because you've got poor friends and you see how they live. And I think that's really important that you said that you wanted to get out of Belfast because of obviously the bomb situation, etc. And it drove you to make a change. And getting out your comfort zone isn't easy. You've probably been in Belfast your whole life up until that point. I'm not sure whether or not that's the case, but to make that big
Yeah,
decision, and we all have a fear of making the wrong decision, fear of commitment, fear of being judged by others, which you probably were. You probably had people saying, "Well, what's the point? What are you doing? Why are you doing all of these things?" And that fear of being rejected by them as well didn't really play into your mind by the sounds of it.
yeah,
You just said, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is the feeling I want to get to Australia. And you obviously imparted on the journey. You did it at quite a young age as well, Chris, didn't you? Did you say 17?
it's 2021. Yeah, I mean,
2021.
2021, you've had your parents telling you what to do for the first part of your life, then you go to school and the teachers telling you what to do. And university, it's always trying to fit in with society, fit in with what is expected of you. Um, and I think you don't really know what you're like yourself because you're too busy fitting in with everybody else's expectations to know
This is
at
it.
that age who you are, what you are.
Yeah.
So I think it was one of the reasons I wanted to go in my own to get away from all the external influences on me
Yeah.
and get on my
And
own.
find yourself. Yeah. I think, again, that's a great point as well, because I think if you were to ask everyone if we were to do a poll right now, and you were to ask someone, right, 10 items on your bucket list, what would they be? You'd probably get some skydiving in there. You'd probably get, start a business, travel, all these sorts of things. But one thing you would definitely get is to just up and go to, whether it's a camper van, whether it's on a plane, whether it's on a bike, whether it's in a car, just to go and have an adventure and see what happens.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've done that, especially at such a young age, the question then is, number one, did it fulfill expectations? And number two is, do you feel that you developed hugely as a person by doing that, even though you may have missed out on certain things, such as, a regular job and career progression. But has the growth of you as an individual outweighed those other potential, let's call it opportunity costs?
Yeah, I think looking back, it certainly did make a huge influence on my life, and it's continued right through. Whether it's been a good influence or a bad influence, I suppose it's the time, but it's the story you could tell. But it was very much, as you say, finding myself, and not only that, but the fact that I didn't actually have a destination. Planned to go east through Turkey, Pakistan, India, to Australia. Had all the guidebooks, had all my plan routes mapped out. But I ended up, as I say, going to the Middle East, going through Israel, Jordan, Syria, some pretty hairy places in the 70s and 80s. But I didn't know where I was going as such because that route was closed. So it's very unusual to do that because anytime you go on a journey, 99% of the time you're actually going somewhere, unless you just go for a Sunday drive. But you're always going, you've always got a destination in mind. But I was actually just traveling for the pure sake of traveling, just to live each day as it came along. It's hard to contemplate these days as so much information is available online for everything. But before the internet age, you had guidebooks or travel books, and I didn't have any for Africa. I did no homework at all for it. Drove down through Egypt, Sudan. I drove off out of Sudan. I didn't even have a map for what was below. Um, so it was very much a discovering where myself was going along, living for the day as each day arrived,
But that's
which is
what I
different.
mean. So, like, for the most part, I'm a strong advocate in having a destination to aim at, whether it's in your personal life
Yeah,
or whatever. But this is what I meant by the bucket list. We all have that sense of adventure where I just want to go and just go somewhere without really knowing where I want to go. And we know this from nights out, or when you go and instead of making a plan, right, we're all going to go, we're going to go here, we're going to spend time at this bar, this restaurant, and move on. Sometimes the best nights are the ones that are just off the cuff.
something. Yeah,
You
just go
just
for it.
you just go and you say, look, we're going to go out. Where are we going? I don't know. We're just going to go to a bar and see what happens. And I think that's an inherent need that humans have, just to follow the waves of what's going on, essentially. And that's
Yeah,
where I'm getting to, really. Did did your experience of that, did it fulfill your expectation of what you were expecting to get from the traveling? And did it give you personal, spiritual growth or development within yourself? Obviously, you've written a book off the back of it, which in itself is a great achievement. And I know myself it is because I've written well 3 books, and it takes a lot from you to actually go ahead and write them. So is
yeah,
that off the back? Is that again? Has
yeah. I
development
think it's
really helped
certainly
you move forward?
certainly part helped develop my personality and what I enjoy doing and so on. And it does greatly. I think it's coming very much in society nowadays that everybody plans everything. Um, they're planning what they're going to do, the next job, their next where they're going to live, their next car, their next whatever it is. And if stop enjoying today, they're too worried about what they're going to do whenever they get their exams or what they're going to do when they get promoted, the move house, whatever it is. There's so much planning for what's happening in the future that they stop actually living, enjoying the life today, which is, I think, with so much information being available nowadays, as I say on the internet, you know what you're going to get whenever you get there. You sort of forget about what's happening today, and people need to enjoy the moment rather than planning ahead so much. Obviously, you need to do a certain amount of planning. You need to go somewhere. You need to get a direction in your life, but don't want to sort of turn everybody into complete hobos. But
Yeah, it's
uh,
definitely a balance, isn't it?
yeah,
Between following a regimented plan and having a flexible long range goal plan or goal that you can adapt and go with the flow at some points. So during your um sort of travels, were there any sort of defining moments, maybe 2 or 3 that really either were the key parts of that journey or that changed you as a person? You mentioned personality earlier. So yeah,
yeah.
any points that really did those things?
I suppose one of the main, the first sort of really difficult parts was crossing the desert, the Sahara Desert through from Egypt down through Sudan. The bike I had was a Moto Guzzi Le Mans, which is a really a cafe racing type of bike. I don't know if you know much about motorbikes, but it's not made for, oops, made for tarmac, not for desert roads. So to get it across the desert was quite an ordeal. It took about a week. Some days you'd be pushing and digging for covering 10 miles. Other days you'd cover 100, 200. But that was certainly quite a dramatic moment, fulfilling and challenging time.
So
Because then when we
resilience.
got, yeah, when we got to the other side of the desert, it meant I couldn't get back again because there was no way I was going to drive back over it again. You know, they to go forward, to keep going south to try and get a ship or whatever was going to end up a journey. So um, Africa certainly, that's 30, 40 years ago, was much more just coming out of the colonial past and much more chaotic than it is now. But yeah, that was certainly a big defining moment.
So were there any more defining moments that have really sort of stuck with you and that are sort of at the forefront of your character now?
Yeah, I mean, getting through Sudan altogether, I suppose, was once I got through the desert, I got to Khartoum, and there was no road for 1,000 miles south, roughly, but there's no petrol stations. Um, so I got myself in this position. I couldn't go back up north because I had to cross the desert, and the bike was bad shape after that. There's no petrol south. There's wars going on to the east and the west. So when you're traveling on your own, you get yourself into these situations, and you go to the British Embassy, and they say, well, you can't go to any of these places. So you've really got to you've got yourself in this situation. You've got to get yourself out of it. Um, so you learn what your inner strength is to get yourself out of these situations like that. I ended up taking a train part of the way. I got into trouble with the police for taking petrol on the train. Nearly got arrested. And then I had to drive 600 miles across dirt roads with all the petrol I could carry. So it was a pretty challenging time. But once you get through something like that, um, you know what you can do. You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it, because nothing in life is going to be as difficult as that again. You know.
Well, this is it. I think when you find yourselves in challenging situations, you'll be surprised how well your mind comes up with solutions. Instead of, as you said, following the teacher, following your parents, parents say you must do A, then B, then C, you actually lose that ability to think and problem solve for yourself.
Yeah.
But when you're out on your own, halfway across the world, the only person to rely on is you.
Yeah.
And you then start to maybe trust your own judgment a little bit more. You start to have an increased level of self-esteem, knowing that actually I can rely on myself. I am, the captain of my own ship or bike in your case. And this is something that I know that I can take back into my normal everyday life, that actually I can make decisions. I will live and die by the sword, as it were. And actually, whatever happens, whether it's getting caught by police or something different, there are ways past that, and there are ways beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think society too these days, it's very much governments and society in general, very much pushing people into sort of doing what they're told and being controlled. The biggest thing at the minute is cash disappearing and credit cards. Everybody's using credit cards. So the banks basically all your information's with somebody else. They know where you're going, what you're doing, what you're spending your money on. And I think it's also parts of society are trying to get people to toe the line, and they don't like society. This government doesn't like people being doing too much on their own, thinking for themselves. Um, I think people need to get out of their comfort zone a wee bit, and as you say, just head off somewhere and do something without anybody. They don't have to drive around the world on a motorbike, but just to clear off somewhere and do something without people telling you what to do and following you and putting it on Facebook and putting it on media. Um,
This is it. And I think with the comfort zone side of things, and for your comfort zone was Belfast, and you've now, traveled all the way east and all the way down to Argentina. Um, so your comfort zone has now expanded from this to this large area. You're comfortable in these countries, you're comfortable riding this far, you're comfortable, managing your own time frame essentially. And this is it. That comfort zone can never go away now. Now to challenge
Yeah,
yourself even further, you might need to write a book, for example. That's coming out of your comfort zone that you did. And life is a perpetual getting out your comfort zone. Because if you didn't get out your comfort zone, you'd still be getting breastfed by your mother, you
well,
know.
exactly.
So this is it. And this is I think when you're a child, you're happy to get out of your comfort zone. And the age in which that diminishes is dependent on the individual. Some people at 16, right, I'm just going to get a job as an apprentice, being a plumber, and that's me for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
For other people, it might be at 40, 35 when they had kids. If I've got kids, I'm settling down, I'm not going to, rock the boat. But some people stop. Well, they don't die at 20, but they don't physically
yeah,
die at 20, but they die mentally because they stop
mentally.
learning, they stop wanting to develop. And other people are 90 and they're, in better shape than the 20-year-old in terms of development. So can you sort of shed a bit of light on your mentality at points during your journey?
Yeah, well, I think as you say, whenever you stop learning or wanting to learn things, that you pretty much do die in your head anyway, because you become fixed and stayed and stop sort of trying and experimenting with anything. And as you say, during when you're a kid, that's fine. You're learning all the time. People start to get a job, get a career, and very often they just decide that's them for life, sort of thing. Whereas I look back at my career of I had about four different careers. I was in retail, furniture, property management, mobile apps in Dubai. I moved to Dubai for a while, and it's certainly the experience of no doubt the experience in driving outdoor on a motorbike gave me the discomfort in a way to keep moving and keep learning and keep uh, trying different things, which has its pros and has its cons, to be fair, because you end up a master of a lot of things, but an expert at none. For instance, I mean, about 10, 15 years ago, I saw the mobile app industry starting up. I was living in Dubai and I started a mobile app company. And I knew nothing at all about computers and mobile apps. So I was going to meetings and people were talking about different USBs and different things, whatever. I was taking a note of it. I hadn't a clue what they were talking about, but I went back and Googled it and found out what it was all about. But I was sitting beside teenagers at a school. I was 40, they were 20, and they knew more than me. So there is you do suffer for your your position you put yourself in. You're having to work harder than you would if you were just decide to be a plumber and that was it, sort of thing. So it does have its downsides as well.
I think it
Mm.
depends on you as an individual, though, because do you know the jack of all trades, master of none? That is not actually the full quote. Jack of all trades, master of none, oftentimes better than being a master of one. That's actually the full quote. So what that means is sometimes it is better to be a jack of all trades than it is to be a
Yeah,
master of one because you're much broader, you know what you like and don't like. Because actually, yes, let's say you're a plumber for the rest of your life, yes, you might be very good at it, but you might not even enjoy it. You might not know that there's better careers for you that you would like more. And if we go back 30, 40 years, being in one career for your life was the norm. Now, with
yeah,
times changing so fast, you can change careers pretty quickly if you wanted to. I think the new forecast is that you will have a career every 10 years because of the fast changing nature of
yeah,
where we are. I mean, even if we look at cars, for example, the rate that they're moving away from combustion engines to electric, a lot of the mechanics who worked on those initial cars, their skill set is going to be lost. So yes, there might be some adaptation. Yes, you could say it's in the same space, but there are differences there. So I think that's the key thing. And look, just because you've been a plumber for all of your life doesn't mean you're going to be any good at it. And there's so much resource out there now that you can learn from. If I would say to you, look, learn about financial markets, for example, probably take you a month, but there's so many videos out there that you can learn it.
yeah, you pick it
And
up.
this is the beauty of it. If I was to learn about the history of the Socratic philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, you could learn that pretty quickly. There's podcasts about it, there's books, there's ChatGPT as well now that can summarize things for you. So the availability of knowledge is endless. But what that doesn't mean is just because there is availability of knowledge, that is underpinned by your your willingness to get out of your comfort zone in the first place.
Yeah,
It
and
all
you've got
starts with that mentality, doesn't it?
and you're building a bag of experience as well that you're able to bring with you. Again, go back to mobile apps. The teenage computer nerd who was sitting beside me didn't know how to sell anything, for instance, so he was making an app. He didn't know what to put in it, whereas I was able.
Exactly.
I mean, that mobile
Exactly.
app's really just another form of communication, which is what sales are all about. So I was able to bring my furniture sales expertise into making a mobile app for different companies.
Exactly.
So, getting older does, as long as you're prepared to keep learning things, doesn't have to turn you into boring old farts sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, and this is it. I think the other point is that skill stacking is going to be very important moving forward. So yes, you speak yes, you're an IT guy, but you also speak French, you have sales experience, etc., etc. So it builds you a niche skill set for you. It's called skill stacking. And I think that's something that's going to be really coming to the forefront in the next decade or two, because everyone's got a different niche set of skills. As you
Yeah,
said, you might have sales experience and this and this and this, and you can be a very specific job role. Whereas for the plumber who's just done plumbing, there's no transferable skills there necessarily.
no, no,
Um, and there are obviously there will be some. I'm not saying there aren't any, but I'm just talking about someone who's changing lead pipes or copper pipes all day, every day. The problem is as well is when you're very focused in a specific area, it's hard to gauge the wider picture. It depends on, again, what do you want? Do you want to be a specialist in a niche area, or do you want to know a little bit about a lot of things and piece everything together as a solution expert, if that's how you want to call it, or what you want to call it as or a manager or a CEO, etc.
mm,
Do you have people skills, or are you more introverted and like to crunch numbers? And I think that again, all of these things are important. And again, comfort zone is massive. Identifying
yeah,
your strengths and also identifying not your weaknesses necessarily, but areas of required improvement. Because a weakness, like let's say for example, you're a tennis player and you're not very good at maths. People say you work on your weaknesses, but maths is my weakness, but it's got no relation to what my primary objective is of being a tennis player. But
yeah,
what areas of improvement are is okay, within my tennis game, my serve is strong, my forehand is strong, but my backhand needs work. So that's the weakness that we need to work on to elevate the overall primary objective of becoming a tennis
yeah,
player. And I think that's what people miss. That the weakness doesn't mean the worst area of yourself. It means relative to what you want to achieve. And again, that comes from getting out of your comfort zone.
yeah. And when I started writing a book, it's called it Going the Wrong Way because obviously the geographical difference, but also, as you say, just picking something that you're not very good at or going a different direction than the minority or the majority of people go. Most people follow a particular route because that's the easy way, it's the fastest way, or whatever. Sometimes it's better to go the more difficult route to challenge yourself more, learn more about yourself, learn more about whatever it is. It's not always about getting your destination because you work-wise your pension or whatever it is. You're going to be people work for 40 years, 40 hours a week just to get their pension. They get to my age and what have you done? You've just worked all your life and you're too,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
hopefully
There's
you,
two quotes that come to mind. It's like if you're on a path, that means that you're probably on someone else's. Because if there's already a path there, someone else has already gone that route.
yeah,
And instead, what we should do is find our own way and leave a trail.
yeah,
So, and this is the thing in life. People don't want to go their own way, leave a trail. They want 5 steps to become a millionaire. Follow this system and become Amazon's #1 bestseller with these products. People just want a process to follow. What they don't understand is they want an end product of becoming, financially successful.
yeah,
But to get there, you need to be a certain type of person. They don't want to develop that person. They just want the end result. And this is where, all of these
yeah,
getting out your comfort zone, not falling to imposter syndrome, not having a fear of being judged by others, not fearing failure, not fearing success, not
and
fearing rejection, all of these things.
it gives you a better time as well. I mean, when you think back in your life, the last year, the days that you were doing the normal things, the things you do every day, you can't even remember them because there was nothing memorable or nothing particular happens. But if you think back a day that something you did something different, so you're saying just going into a different town to go to a different pub or a different restaurant, you do something different. You're building a memory, memories that are more unusual
This is it.
that
This
you've
is it. No one
you know.
remembers the time that you walked to the shop. People
Yeah,
remember those stories that you overcame struggle. But the same people who understand that do not want to overcome struggle themselves. And that's why they have a boring, mundane life.
yeah,
So in terms of the book then, so obviously it's on sale on Amazon. Is it about your whole journey? Obviously written in the first person, I'm guessing. Can you just
yeah.
talk a little bit about the book?
Well, I started writing a book whenever I came home back in 1981, and I was 21. I was never very good at English at school, but got the manuscript written. But then somebody turned up with a book for somebody else had written, a guy called Ted Simon, who'd ridden around the world in a motorbike. And it was an excellent, the guy was a journalist, he was a writer, professional writer, it was a very good book. So I sort of put mine in the drawer and got on with the rest of my life. But 4 or 5 years ago, I decided to finish the book because I realized that the guy, he was 45 when he did his journey, which so he's a completely different view and everything than a guy like myself who was 21. Even though we were in the same places, sometimes different things happened, different different life altogether. So it was very interesting at the age of 60 odd, taking my 21-year-old notes on what I was thinking, what I was doing at that stage, and using the knowledge that I have now to sort of look back on what I was doing and give opinions and translate that into words for the trip. So I think it's given it quite an unusual lean. It's written by as a 21-year-old, but with my older self looking down on it. It's been a bestseller on Amazon. It's going really well, so I'm very pleased. How it's
Yeah,
going.
it's like Heraclitus says, doesn't he? No man ever steps in the same river twice because it's not the same river and it's not the same man.
Yeah,
And that comes to perspective. You look back on this situation, or this sort of journey you went through, and as you said, the notes that you saw or wrote at the time are very different to how you think now because of
yeah.
everything you've been through. So when you look back, you see it from a completely new perspective. That river, as it were, is no longer the same because it's not the same river anymore and it's not the same man. It's completely different. And that's what Heraclitus
Actually,
meant
yeah,
when he said that. I think that's really important. When you go back to Belfast, when you came back, would have looked very different than it did when you left.
yeah. I was happy enough to stay in Belfast when I got back. I could work, realized that well, the grass is always greener on the other side, but Belfast was actually quite a good place to be for other reasons, you know. But as you say, I actually met Ted Simon, the other author, a number of years ago. He was about 90 odd, so we sat down with a glass of wine and talked about our journey, the places that we've been. And as you say, we both had different experiences in the same place. One place he thought was a great place, I thought was terrible, and vice versa. So it was quite fun sort of comparing our journeys 40 years afterwards.
So what were the similarities and what were the differences?
Well, it was all to do with the number of the people you meet, really, because you think back and people ask me what's my favorite city. And I say, well, it's actually, for instance, like Cape Town. I really like Cape Town, but it wasn't particularly for the architecture. I think it was because I had a really good time there, met some nice people. So it's a sort of mix of different things going on in your head at that stage, you know.
No, absolutely. And as you said, if you put 20 people in a room, they will all see something different. Some might see the decoration, some might smell, the aroma, some might look at um the what people are dressed as. Some people might look at hair, they might be hair specialists. Other people might look at the social dynamic, who's the dominant person, who's going out with who, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the key. Everyone will look at something different. Someone could go on the
Yeah.
same exact trip you did, but it will be a completely different trip.
Well, the other thing I
Um,
did to after the book was launched, one of my mates said to me, "Well, you never actually got to Australia in a motorbike, so why not have another go?" So 3 or 4 years ago, we just after COVID was set off on, it still had the same Moto motorcycle. So I thought, let's just use the same bike. I'm the same person, albeit 40 years older. I set off east to Australia. So I actually made it there last year on the same bike. Managed to do the trip. So it was interesting
Fantastic.
perspective. As a 65-year-old, sort of looking forward to retirement, comparing it to when I was 21, looking forward to starting work, starting into
So that would that
the,
be another book going the right way then?
it should be something like that. But it took me 40 years to write the last one, so don't know if I've got that long left. But yeah,
No,
working on the next
I
one.
think because it's fresher. I think you've got experience now with writing a book. So as we said,
Mhm.
you've come out your comfort zone, so it'll be a lot easier. You know what to do. You know how to write. I mean, my third book was written a hell of a lot faster than my first one.
Yeah,
And my second one was in between, obviously. And I'm writing another book, a novel this time. But yeah, you get to know a process that works for you. And what you'll probably find is that this time it will be a lot faster. And you've already got readers that are like your
yeah.
first book. And if you were to, launch a second one, completely different story, different perspective, different outcome as well.
There's always a bit of pressure though, because people really enjoyed the last book. You don't
Yeah, I
find
know,
people
but the
find the
thing is
same.
that again, it depends how you look at things. You can look at it in, oh, it's pressure. It's like J.K. Rowling. So before I started writing my novel, I did a lot of listening to authors, like obviously
Yeah,
world-class authors, just to why would you not listen to world-class authors if you're going to write a novel?
that's a good
Anyway,
idea.
so she said, there's always naysayers, there's always people who shoot you down. And she goes, people say to me, don't you ever feel disappointed and gutting that you will never write anything better than Harry Potter? And she said, no. She said, it's actually very um it sort of relieved me of pressure because I know that's the best thing I'll ever do. That's fine. It gives me the freedom just to write now with no
Yeah,
expectation. You cannot write something better than one of the best-selling books in history. Impossible. You
yeah.
can't better that. What you can do is it relieves you of any pressure of trying to write something so amazing. And that's how she looks at it. And maybe you could think, actually, that's something
Yeah,
that
that's a
you
good.
could concern, not concern, you could take on and think, well, actually, yeah, say what if they don't like it as much as the first one? This gives me the feeling just to write it, and I've already got a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
book, and doing it on that basis, I think that's a really, again,
It's
mentality
a
is
good
what
way of looking at it.
separates.
Yeah,
Yeah, mentality is what separates the best from the second best. And if you look at like even any athlete, the way they think compared to the person who's just a little bit less than them in terms of achievements, there's not always a huge difference in terms of physical attributes or skill level. A lot of it's mentality,
yeah,
and how you're framing what happens. Because thinking about it is, oh, well, they might not like it as much, versus this gives me the freedom, I don't give a shit. You're going to write a better story in that mindset than you will in the first one.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's about reframing, and that's, half the battle, really. So
yeah. And
if people want to find your book, where can they find that?
it's on Amazon. Chris Donaldson, Going the Wrong Way by Chris Donaldson. It's on my website as well, chrisdonaldson.world, if you want to get a copies direct from me, because a lot of people don't like Amazon. Everybody uses it, but everybody complains about them.
Yeah, well,
But
again, this is the human psyche in a nutshell. Everyone hates a system, yet everyone
yeah,
wants
it's to be
the new
part.
shoes delivering tomorrow by Amazon. So,
Yeah,
you can't have it both ways. And this is one of the, probably a separate topic altogether, but this is a real tribe I've got. Everyone wants to,
yeah.
be out the system, but they're the same people who want and need the system. So it's like, well,
So everybody wants to
you got,
shop. Everybody
yeah,
wants to have a local shop, but they don't want
yeah,
to
exactly. You
get
can't have
butchered, go
both.
down there. They want
Yeah.
to just get online and
Yeah.
buy it.
It's like there's not anyone in the world who can build a car from scratch. You need other people doing other
Yeah,
things to
yeah,
get your end goal, and
yeah.
that's what we need to understand. But so we'll obviously put the link in the notes for the book. Is there anything else that we've maybe missed, or any sort of final comments that you want to put out there?
Just if people got an idea to do something, just get out and do it. I think people overthink things too much these days. Try and plan again, the planning too much, overthink it, and the more you overthink something, you're just going to talk yourself out of doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's just do a Forrest Gump and get out and do it.
This is it. Analysis, paralysis by analysis, I think they call it.
Yeah,
But yeah, well, thanks very much for being on the show, Chris. It's been fantastic.
good to
And
be
yeah,
on, John.
make sure you write that second book.
Will do. Keep in touch.